Back in the 1920s, animation was undoubtedly a dying novelty. There were rarely any theaters that had any animated shorts, and the demand for them was non-existent. The only cartoons that was doing decent at the time was Felix the Cat and Out of the Inkwell, and even they were starting to lose their viewers. But then, on November 18th, in the year 1928, Steamboat Willie was released, which was the first debut of Mickey Mouse, Disney's mascot. Steamboat Willie was very groundbreaking and successful during the time of its release, and kicked off what is known as the golden age of animation. Many iconic characters emerged from this era, such as Bugs Bunny,
What's up, Doc?
Tom and Jerry, Woody Woodpecker, and the first on-screen adaptation of the Man of Steel himself, Superman.
Man of Steel, Superman!
Yes, Superman was in theaters during the golden age of animation. It aired from 1941 through 1943, collecting 17 episodes in total, with each episode being 8 minutes long. The first 9 episodes were produced by Max Fleischer, who was responsible for cartoons like Betty Boop,
Are you late?
I got a cold
and Popeye the Sailor.
Oh, yeah.
Max Fleischer was also the inventor of the rotoscoping method, an animation method that's still used to this day, and even today's animation. What exactly is the rotoscoping method? Rotoscoping is an old school process used to create animation from live action footage. The technique involves drawing over the live action footage with a series of still images, which are then placed onto a background track of movement to form a finished animated scene. So yeah, basically, the rotoscoping method combined hand-drawn and live-action footage to make animation look more fluid and full of life, and this show demonstrates this perfectly. These shorts were responsible for Superman's most iconic power, flight. During the time, Superman could only leap from place to place, as showcased in the comic books. After seeing the leaping animated, Fleischer deemed it silly looking, so they asked Action Comics if they could have Superman fly instead. Action Comics ended up agreeing, and after that, Superman's power flight has been a staple as one of his superpowers to this very day. Within the Superman show, there's really only 3 recurring characters, which are Superman, Lois Lane, and Perry White. And they're not even really in every episode, except Superman, of course. Lois Lane, who is voiced by Joanne Alexander, is a reporter who works at the Daily Planet who goes out of her way to put herself in harm's way just to get a big story. Yeah, she's kinda the constant damsel in distress. But not in every single episode though. Just a select few. Then there's Perry White, voiced by Jackson Beck, who is editor-in-chief at the Daily Planet. He usually tells Lois and Clark all the big events so that they could get some sort of big story out of it. And of course, there's Superman / Clark Kent, who is voiced by Bud Koiler. But yeah, Superman in this show is not aware of his Kryptonian origins at all. His powers have no apparent explanation except evolved physiology. So yeah, the character was not as deep and complex as he is today. In fact, there isn't even any reference to the Kent couple at all. This version of Superman was raised in an orphanage instead. But a less fleshed out Superman is not always a bad thing. Sometimes less is more, and this show demonstrates that perfectly. The show has very straightforward and basic storytelling. It just feels like another fun early 40s cartoon serial, but still very unique in its own way. There's rarely any dialogue in this show. It's mostly just, oh look, a bad guy is doing bad things, and then, hey look, it's Superman here to save the day. Very basic, but still very entertaining. Now, there's really no iconic Superman villains throughout the show, due to the fact that the majority of them were not even invented during the time of this show's release. But Superman still goes up against evil foes, such as a bunch of evil robots, or a mad scientist, or a bunch of robbers. Okay, maybe not the most unique set of villains, but the animation makes them appear unique. I mean, mean, just look at it. It's so full of color, full of life, so vibrant. It looks amazing. It looks incredible. Yeah, the main highlight of the show, without a doubt, the beautifully hand-drawn animation. They show off all of Superman powers in cool and unique ways. When you're watching Superman do all these awesome things, it just makes you wish you could do all this cool ass shit. I mean, just look at how cool all this stuff looks. He's just so inspirational. And that was the initial reason why this character was created in the first place. Inspiration. Everything in general is so full of life and fluent. You can really feel the impact of everything. This serial showcases some of the best animation of the golden age of cartoons, and even looks light years better than some of the superhero shows that came way after it. This show was, and still is, a classic, and it still holds up to this day. It's fun, charming, and as previously mentioned before, very beautiful to look at. It's probably my personal favorite on-screen version of Superman, besides the Christopher Reeve's version, of course. If I had a child and I wanted to introduce him or her to Superman, I would show them this show. It's very flashy and cool, and would be very easy for a toddler to understand. Anyways, with all that being said, check out the show. It's great, and I'm out.
Nice going, Lois. Another great scoop for you.
It was easy. Thanks to Superman.